This is the vertex form of a quadratic function, where y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. From the vertex form, we can gather a few characteristics about our parabola before we even graph, such as the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that divides the parabola in half. In other words, it tells you where the middle of the graph is, and that's with x equals h. The second characteristic is the vertex. The vertex is the point where the parabola changes directions, okay? And this is from h, comma k. It's a coordinate point. Lastly, the vertex form can also tell you which way the parabola opens. If the a value is greater than 0, then the parabola opens upward. If a is less than 0, a negative number, then the parabola will open downward. Here's a vertex quadratic function where y equals x plus 1 squared minus 3. Let's see if we can gather the pieces of the characteristics of this parabola. First off, the axis of symmetry. Remember, it is the equation x equals the h number. I'm sure most of you are probably thinking, okay, this is easy. It's x equals 1, but it's not. It's actually x equals negative 1. Due to the fact that h, the original formula says x minus h, when we plugged in a negative 1, two negatives make a positive. So really the h value is the opposite of what it really is. The vertex form, since you already know the x value, then the k value is the last part in the back. And for this one, it's going to be negative 3. Which way does it open? If you look in front of the parentheses previously where the a value was, there's nothing there. But remember, even if you don't see anything there, you automatically count it as an invisible 1. So that means this graph opens upward because the value of a is greater than 0. Here's another quadratic function. Y equals x minus 3 squared plus 2. What will be the axis of symmetry? Remember from our first problem, it's not x equals negative 3, it's the opposite value. So that means x equals positive 3. Whatever our x value is here, it's the first coordinate for our vertex. And where's our k value? Right here in the back. And you write it down as is. So our vertex is 3, comma 2. Which way does this graph open? Where does the a value go? There's nothing there. But remember, just because there's nothing there, it doesn't mean there's a value there. If it was 0, we would have 0 there. But there's an invisible 1. And since 1 is greater than 0, this graph opens upward. Here's another function. Uh-oh, looks like we lost our parentheses on this one. The function reads y equals negative 2/3 x squared. So if we don't have the parentheses, what will be the axis of symmetry? That's easy. It's going to be 0. Okay? That means this graph is right on the y-axis in the middle of your coordinate grid, right at the origin. And if it's in the axis of symmetry is x equals 0, remember the first coordinate would be 0. And since there's no plus or minus k in the back, I have to assume that my vertex is also 0. Which way does this graph open, though? Well, remember the a value is the first value out in front before x squared, and then this number is negative 2/3. That's less than 0, which means this graph opens downward. Here's another function. Y equals negative parentheses x minus 4 squared. What's the axis of symmetry on this one? Remember, the number inside the parentheses take the opposite sign to find the axis of symmetry. So what you see is x minus 4, but our axis of symmetry is x equals positive 4. What's our vertex? Remember, our x value right here goes here for our coordinate for the vertex with the h coordinate. But what's our k? Well, there's nothing in the back here, which means our vertex is 4, 0. Which way does this parabola open? If you check in front, I see a negative sign. Really, that's a -1. Okay? This one is usually invisible in math. And if -1 is less than 0, that means our graph opens downward.